Hey everyone, it's Patrick Bell. We are here at the Consulting Kingdom. I'm here today with Don Gleason of Don Gleason Consulting. Don, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to see you, Pat. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, how you're involved, a little bit of your journey.
I could do it in about a minute because I do it pretty regularly. But, I was 23 and I started a travel agency. I was working with high school kids through Young Life and a lot of things. And I realized there wasn't a travel agency within 100 miles of where I lived in Mississippi. By the time I was 28, I had five. And my idea of accounting and finance management was a gray cash box. You throw all the money in it, and if it gets too full, go to the bank. I had no really business acumen, and yet we were running these businesses. I sold all of them in 1991, a year before the internet wiped out retail travel agents, and I went to work for Disney. So I came to Orlando, and for the next years, I was director of international marketing and sales, so a lot of travel, uh, and that was great. But my kids, later as they're 12 and 13, said, Dad, if we have to bury one more dead hamster and you're not here, game over. So I went to the dark side. I went to Universal and I became an executive there. And after a couple of years of that, I began consulting.
So, what kind of consulting did you do then?
In the early days, I would go into a company. People started calling me once I left Disney, and it would be um, an airline reservation systems company. And it was going to be 6 months and ended up being 2.5 years. Later, it was sold to Sabre. Then next was building an indoor water park hotel, kind of Disney-esque, with Famous Dave, and we put it outside Chicago, and that was 2.5 years. And then the next one was in construction, and a few others, even a faith-based nonprofit called Apartment Life, which embeds a team into an apartment community, not only to build community, but it's a business tree, but an interesting ministry, and it provides great value to the apartment industry. So after that, though, I started doing smaller individual businesses on shorter shots, 6 months, four
Right.
months, those kinds.
So, like, what kind of things do you wish you'd known before you jumped into this consulting field, this industry?
A couple of things. Number one, travel takes its toll, just like it did in the old days. If you're flying out every Sunday night to an engagement, flying home on Friday, you're home for 36 hours, and you have to fly out again on Sunday. That's a tough way to go, and especially if you're doing it for another company. So I stopped doing that, and I wish I would have known that there is no wild claims. You do not make improvements in any consulting engagement business instantly. It's not 30 days, you're going to get 20 clients and you're going to get X revenue. It takes time, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months to realize what we actually put in place and execute on any engagement. I didn't know that it would take that long.
Right. And so tell us a little bit about those. You're flying out Sunday night, you're getting back Friday night or Saturday. Like, what was that all about?
Well, I worked for a large company that had about 160 consultants. They would bill me at 4.95 an hour, and I would go into a small business and have to give them an invoice of $20,000 for the week for my time and expenses. And I knew their finances. I knew it would be tough, but the promise was we'll improve your business. And if we're not here, you might have to close your doors. Well, and the company was more concerned about billable hours than they were about the client. So I did it for 4 years, but after that, I said I'll never be a taxi driver again, charged by the hour, and I'm never going to do that with small business.
Wow. So, um, what advice then would you give someone they want to get into consulting? They're thinking, yeah, whatever. They've been downsized out of their job. They've they're just coming up through the ranks. They look at it as an attractive field. What advice would you give to someone who feels called to enter into the field of consulting then?
I'd be really careful about getting the called into what I call the siren song of certain firms. I can think of some that are national that will offer you a franchise for $80,000 and a methodology and teach you. I would really tell somebody the best thing you can do is actually find a consulting group, most likely individual, and work with somebody who's doing it before you just step out on your own. Partner with someone, even if it's just one other consultant who's been around the block, because that will save you so much time and heartache about making mistakes or things, and it'll keep you in an engagement longer. So, partnering or pairing up with somebody who's in the industry is a good thing.
Yeah, that's exactly the advice I was given right before I got into consulting, as I was on my way from Japan to Kenya. And someone said, "You're trying to start a consulting business. You're foolish to try that, because go and work for someone for the next 5 or 10 years and go and learn how to do it." And in retrospect, well, we went to Kenya and I learned how to do a lot. It was just feet to the fire in a sense. But man, to have the stability and learn how to master the trade, working with someone else would have been such an asset. So as you go now, you're consulting, you're doing different things. Um, what kind of challenges keep you awake at night? Like what kind of things are um, most challenging for you? How do you deal with them?
Yeah, it's a great question, Pat. I do wake up. Um, I fall asleep really quickly, but I'll wake up at 1 o'clock with what I call spreadsheet head. I've got all of these facts and figures, and I'm dreaming about this spreadsheet or these things, and I fall back asleep, and I'm right back in the same spreadsheet in my head, and then I wake up again, and it's repetitive. But I think the things that keep me up the most are, am I really asking the right questions? And second, why am I really here in this engagement? Because when I first started out, my very first one for that firm, they flew me to Minnesota. I'm sitting in the Hilton at the airport waiting for the text that says, here's where you're going as a consultant. And so I get to Minnesota at 3 o'clock in the morning by the time I drove 2.5 hours. And I went to the business, and the business had a marquee sign on it that said Cornerstone. And I'm not going to mention any more about it or the town, but there was this little map in the corner, and it said it had a star, and I recognized it as Haiti, and it said Oasis of Hope.
Hmm.
I went, So it's 7:30 in the morning. I go into the engagement, and I'm with a senior other consultant who looked at me at breakfast and said, "Do not say anything. You're too green. You don't know anything. This is your first job, so just keep your mouth shut and listen, and then I'm going to leave once we open the job, and then you can stay here the next 2 weeks and work it." So I just sat there, and I did know some stuff, but anyway, finally at the end of the engagement, the owner looked at me and goes, "Well, you've been really quiet. Do you have any questions for me?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I noticed your marquee sign. I noticed Oasis of Hope. Is that a tenant in your building here, or does that mean something to you?" He went, "It means a lot. It's an orphanage and a school in Haiti. In fact, my son, who I adopted from Haiti, is in the warehouse right now. You'll meet him
Wow.
this week." And I said, "Wow, that's really interesting." I said, "Do you know who Tony Campolo is?" Now, this is going back to the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
Anybody that was ever in youth ministry or knows Tony's, it's Friday, but Sunday's coming, all those things. And he goes, "Yes, I do." And I said, "Well, I wrote tickets for Tony Campolo's EAPE in the 80s in my travel agency. You and I are going to have a lot of fun talking." The other senior consultant who's opening the job had no idea what we're talking about,
Yep.
but it was so cool. So, and that's always been the prayer. Lord, send me to where I need to be. Only send me where I need to be. Don't send me anywhere else. And then help me figure out why I'm really there.
Yeah. That's amazing. So let's talk about So you got challenges on one side, you have to have hope, you have to have faith on the other. Like, what kind of scriptures or books or resources have guided you on this journey you're on?
I actually reread the three really powerful ones pretty much every year, every other year. The first one is called The Heart of an Executive, and it's by, I think, Richard Phillips. But the whole premise is a contrast in the leadership styles of David and Saul. Saul led like this. He was an amazing leader, took, you know, took them all kinds of places. David was a very different kind of leader as he came up. Both were flawed individuals, which gives me hope. Just just saying. But The Heart of an Executive is an incredible book, a great read. I think you can still find it on Amazon. The second one is more going into what is really important. You know, in consulting, it's always pretty simple. It's X to Y by when that equals cash or whatever. So when we get into execution, we really need to know about metrics, etc. So the four disciplines of execution by McChesney is powerful because it is a methodology that we've used. And then a really old school book that I think you would really enjoy. You probably have read it, but it's by a guy named Goldratt. I think it's from the 80s, and
Eli
it's called
Goldratt.
the theory. Yep, the theory of constraints.
Yep.
And in any system, especially if you work with manufacturing or in any system, the
Yep.
smallest type constraint is really important. So those three books have really guided me, and of course, the Bible, which is 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 always ever present and amazing.
So talk to me about your faith. How does that impact your work as a consultant then?
Yeah, that's a great question. I meet with a bunch of guys, and we encourage each other, etc. And um, sadly, the person that really started this about 20 years ago died this past week. We were at his funeral, but even at the funeral, it was full of hope and it was amazing. But
Mm.
we look at each other and we say to each other, we actually recite this out loud. And he said, and he told us, he said, look, we're not elks, we're not moose, we're not a deal, but we do have a creed. And we talk to each other that says, the glory of God is man fully alive, men and women. We become fully alive. We
Mm.
come fully alive when we use our uniqueness, the way we're wired, the gifts, the talents, the experience to love and benefit others. So, by the grace of God, we're going to pursue His dreams for our lives by listening to that still small voice say, let there be, dot,
Mm.
dot, dot. Let there be what? Let there be kids adopted from Ethiopia, from Axum, and somebody in the group has done four. Let there be, let there be a software company that is disruptive and turns the industry on its head because it's based on integrity, reality, and really smart technology. Let there be. So, Pat, you've had those let there be moments, I know, but listening to all these guys, let there be a movie about golf, and it turned into The Mulligan by Wally Armstrong.
Yep.
You know, so any of those things. So yes, so that's an encouragement, but that's why you let me use my uniqueness to benefit others.
Okay. So let's talk about setbacks. Um, you are we realize that business is about solving challenges on a daily basis, of course, for our clients on a daily basis. And as we run a consulting business, we're solving challenges for ourselves in
Mm-hmm.
our own consulting business. Though now we have a foundation of faith that helps us. So talk to me about a significant setback maybe in the last 12, 18 months or something that you faced, and then tell that story, like what happened in that moment. How did you overcome that? How did your wisdom or experience or faith help you overcome a major setback, perhaps last year or
Yeah,
two, somewhere in there?
yeah. No, it's a great question, and I've had a few. Some of them my own doing, but right after COVID, consulting dried up. There's no consulting. Nobody's hiring consultants. Everybody's just trying to survive. And a university called me and asked me to write a Bachelor of Science degree in hospitality and develop courses. So right out of the blue, here comes a fish with a coin in
Hmm.
its mouth and
Nice.
sustain me through a year. It took me a year and a half, and I taped 130 lectures for Belhaven University, faith-based Christian school in Jackson, Mississippi. But I developed the courses, and that kept me going. And I couldn't see the future. I didn't know. I couldn't see what was going
Right.
on. And we had a hurricane here, and I had three very large burn piles. All the debris from the trees and stuff. And I'm not that bright sometimes because I thought that gasoline that was mixed with oil for a weed eater did not ignite as fast. You couldn't light it as quick, so it would be okay to sprinkle it around the burn pile. I'm leaning over. Debbie's down on the dock, and all of a sudden there's a 25-foot fireball and explosion as that thing blew up. And she came running up. I looked like a coyote, with crispy stuff, and smoke coming off me, and I'm all pitch black. And she goes, "Oh, Don, we got to get you cleaned up. That's horrible." And I said, "Honey, get the keys. We're going to the hospital." And we go 15 minutes down the road, hit the hospital. They took one look at me. They said, "Upstairs." 15 minutes, they medevaced me in a helicopter.
Wow.
I burned, most of my face and the right side and stuff. It was pretty horrific. Um, four things of fentanyl later, they took off the skin and sent me home. That was a pretty good setback because I couldn't work. And fortunately, I had six people show up at the hospital immediately when I was arriving in 30 minutes to pray that God would miraculously do something here because I was pretty much an idiot to blow myself up. But those people stayed there all the way till midnight. I
Wow.
had prayer chain people going, and 3 months later, I looked really good. I had a
Yeah.
nice
Baby
chemical
skin.
peel.
There you go.
Yeah, baby skin. My hands have no scars, and you know the surgeon that came into the burn unit finally at 11 o'clock, they were going to immerse me in a vat and do this. He goes, "Well, you're not as advertised." And I go, "What do you mean?" "Well, when you came in the emergency room, they told me you were burned 70% of your body." He said, "I'm thinking it's like 17% and nothing's more than, nothing's at three." Okay. Don't know how, but God sustained it, did it, and I came out of that. So I've had a few of those setbacks. Debbie doesn't let me play with burn piles anymore.
Of course. Yeah. Let her do it.
So, right.
So, so like what kind of things are you learning now as you grow in your consulting expertise? What are the kind of things that you're like what books or what topics are you exploring right now that help you
Sure.
advance in your ability?
Yeah. Um, I'm still learning as I do some pro bono coaching for an organization called Crew, formerly Campus Crusade. I coached one of their senior executives for a 2 year period. But I've learned that because we have this body of work and we know some stuff, and I've done 36 consulting engagements, not to be a serial teleholic. So I'm a recovering teleholic, and I learned to ask better questions. And especially, I'm being coached. We have 30 of these coaches for Crew, but I'm being coached by them to talk 20% of the time, let them talk 80%, and ask really great questions because the questions are the most powerful thing you can do. You can even ask somebody on the airplane next to you, "Hey, where did you grow up? What was that like? You know, what were the biggest influences that shaped you during that period?"
Yeah.
The questions are just powerful. So I'm still learning that. And I did buy the book, um, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Yep.
And I did know that I had a problem when I got the audio book. And I went to do it and I listened to it at four times the speed. Okay, so I still need to, be more purposeful And with all the things I've learned with my group, there's this interesting idea of the waterfall of grace, and it's grace based. It doesn't mean no performance, but it does mean that if we're on a performance mindset, it's always about what we do or who can do for us, our agenda, our timing.
Mm.
And grace based is a different kind of mindset. In other words, it's like swimming in clear water that's a cool pool, as opposed to that muddiness we find ourselves swimming in sometimes in the world, thinking and with the people. Um, Stay closer to the clear water and the one who gives it to us. So that's kind of where I'm noodling today.
Wow, that's so good. Okay, so let's talk tools. Tools, strategy. What kind of tips, suggestions would you give to our audience about tools, about strategy that could help them become a better consultant?
That's a really good question because strategy is really important. You know, we know where we are, we know where we want to go, we do that, and there are plenty of people probably on bar stools all over the world who have lots of strategies and ideas and things, etc. Um, Execution is critical, and execution has to be paired with the right strategy. But the interesting thing is, Harvard Business Review says that only 8% of executives, senior executives, and business owners can do both. They're
Hmm.
either got all kinds of ideas, or um, there's a commercial cleaning company that cleans ducts in hospitals and airports, and they go into midnight. But they've been $6 million every year for 4 years. So they're doing good. Their employees are well compensated. They've made good money. But his idea was, I want to grow. I want to be at 10 or 12. I want to sell this business in the next 5 years. They can't break through the ceiling because they're just great at operations and good at what they do, but they had no strategy. So we marry those two. So strategy and execution are critical. So learn both sides of the equation. And then also there's the chain. It's always sales, the acquisition of a client is tough or whatever. So be an expert in that whole sales pipeline, ideal client profile and
Right.
messaging, etc. And then it goes into operations. No rework. Maybe your goal in operations is zero defect, or no cabinets that come out ugly, whatever it is. And then last of all, finance. You know, I talk to a small business owner and I say, did you audit the last 5 jobs you did? You bid it, you did it, you ran it, you planned on it being 18%. It came out at 6. So I think one of the biggest things to develop is curiosity. You take a page out of Ted Lasso for those of you that are listening to this that ever watched that series. He said, be curious, not judgmental. So I'd never go in if the person in sales isn't operating. I'm just curious. Where are you stuck? Is it at the start of the funnel? Is it the close? Your operations guy. I'm just curious. I wonder why we can only make 2.5 kitchen cabinet sets per week. Well, it's because the paint room is backed up. Okay, well, let's close the pipe. Finance, same thing. I wonder why your margin's at 4. Because industry standards, NAICS data tells you it should be at 10 or 12. So there's some things going on. So developing curiosity and not judgment is a superpower.
Yeah, good. And then learning to ask the right questions, obviously.
Exactly.
What we're trying to create, what we have created at Kingdom Growth Engine, is the ability for consultants to ask well over 1,000 questions at the right moment to get the result you're looking for. So,
Yeah. And that's a really great point because using a tool like Kingdom Growth Engine is a game changer. It has been for me because when I used to go into those appointments and fly around the country and do that, it would take me, sometimes I'd be up for 8 hours into 3 in the morning to write the report, do the deal, demonstrate to the client the value, and prove it. And they had to initial it and sign every page. using the really smart science that we have, using a kingdom growth engine, simulation and demonstration, I can do in, I don't tell the clients this, but I could probably do in 30 minutes what used to take me a week, and it
Hmm.
not only saves time, but it's intuitive. So the places where I am stuck in either manufacturing or what to improve or how would I do that?
Yeah.
It has all that built into it. So yes, the technology today that's available is powerful, and what you have created. I don't know. Not only started looking at it, I said after Disney and Universal, I was going, man, I don't want to just be a user of this. I want to jump in and be part of this company. I'll do
Yeah.
whatever I can to move it forward. And so it's been an incredible journey. The launch is amazing, and people are still, and we're still just only here at discovery. So I can't wait to continue to help people be able to use these powerful tools.
It's a great thing about technology. It's always expanding. And, I was talking to a young man in South Africa today and talking about AI. And I said, "Do you use the AI?" And he goes, "No, I'm not really using it." I'm like, imagine your choose 10 of your smartest heroes in the business world. For example, if it's like whatever, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, whatever, and they're sitting at your boardroom in your office, and they're just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, waiting for you to ask a question to them. And you say, "No, no, no, I'll just handle it myself. It's fine." And you go out and you write your email, you come up with a strategy yourself. I said, this is what you're dealing with. You have the ability to access all this wisdom and knowledge, and you're ignoring it because you're too proud, basically, to say, "I need help." And so, in a very short time, I said, what challenges are you facing in your business? Okay, let's see what basically Chat GPT could come up with for your very unique business. How to go out after high net worth individuals in your industry, and it gave him 20 out of the box or great ideas, and then how to implement each of them. And it was just in a matter of a couple minutes. And so what I see in technology is this seismic shift where we've gone from, think about 30 years ago, everything you're pounding out is on a typewriter, and then it goes to a word processor, to a desktop computer, to a laptop. You wouldn't say 20 years ago, "Oh, I know that you know that computers are out there, but I just prefer my typewriter because I find it, I just don't need to learn more." I mean, that's just foolishness. And then the cell phone comes in, the apps we're using, the advances there. We're in the middle of this new seismic shift with AI. And, people have to, avoid that at their own peril. I think we have to learn how to use that. And obviously, it's something that we've really leaned on a lot as we've developed new softwares. Artificial intelligence. You have to be there, or else you're
You-
playing a catch-up game to everyone who is.
That's exactly right. So, person comes to me, friend, known a long time. He used to be the world champion barefoot jumping champion. He's like
Okay.
56. He's still on the lake today, barefoot skiing. I mean, this guy's a rock star. But he came to me and he said, "Hey, listen, I build docks. I do floating docks. I had this idea. I want to take like what you would do as a little floating dock pad, and I want to fill it with solar panels. And then I want to go to a business development site that has, in Florida, we have a lot of retention ponds, and you have to have them to keep the groundwater from flooding everything. So you have ponds everywhere around these commercial centers." He said, "So I just want to ring it with floating solar, and then I want to put it back into the grid so that it cuts their energy costs."
Nice.
I said, "Cool." I met a guy at a conference, a Christian guy. He's in San Diego. He told me he cracked the code on battery storage from solar. And he has basically what is an interface which moves electrical power from the solar panels into the grid at peak times and then stores it and puts it back, when it just moves it back and forth. It's in there. I don't know about this technology. I didn't,
Right.
but they asked me about it. So I just went in to the prompt and said, if there's a 10-acre site that has solar, and I need the value proposition of what it would be to reduce energy costs, to move it from peak to non-peak times, store it, and go back. And I need 3 pages of data and supporting data for this project. Boom. And then I said, elaborate elaborate a little bit more on the battery storage.
Yeah.
Elaborate on what the average kilowatt per hour is, or whatever. And by the time I was done, I had 15 pages that made me sound really, really smart. And I
Yep.
put it together and sent it off to a potential client. Um, and both of them are going, "Wow, you really understand this industry." And I kind of go, I'm learning, but no,
Yeah. Yeah.
the tools are there so that we can learn
Exactly.
and present well. Yeah.
Yep. It's not about necessarily what you know. It's how fast can you access what you need to know that sets you apart these days. Because knowledge, as I've said before, is expands very, very quickly, and we can't keep up. But we
Hmm.
we we have to have systems whereby we can access things quickly, and that's what AI is helping us do, and that's what the internet's always been helping us do. But hey, Don, our time is up. Thank you so much. I'd like to know, where can our listeners, viewers connect with you online?
Online, easiest way to connect probably is through my LinkedIn, which is where I put all my professional things. My Facebook is always about family and family photos and pictures of my 8-year-old driving the John Deere and thinking it's Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. So I prefer LinkedIn, and it's Don Gleason in Orlando. You can find me there. Or if you just want a direct connect, go to Don at dongleasonconsulting.com.
Great. Thank you, Don. Appreciate you. Blessings on your
Always
day.
appreciate you. Thank you so much, Pat. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Cheers.
Cheers.